Yes, sir. Good to go.
Okay.
Good to go?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the SEDA lecture series. Now, this is a lecture series where we take this opportunity to invite people in the field of design, in the field of architecture, and also in allied disciplines to showcase their work. I'm very happy. So my name is Pratyush Shankar, and I'm the Dean of SEDA. And I'm joined today by a lot of my colleagues here, and I'm very happy to have our speaker today, HRIDAY GAMI. And personally, it's also a very proud moment because HRIDAY was my student at SEPT a few years back, and he was a very popular student. So I'll give a kind of a personal introduction. A very popular student amongst the student community, but also a student who was always showed a kind of a flair for design, a flair for drawing, a flair for graphics. And I was just talking to my colleagues that with HRIDAY and his batch, I traveled a lot with them. I did many RSPs, conferences, and a lot of non-curricular stuff. So I had a lot of fond memories of his whole batch and also of him in particular. So HRIDAY is one of those architects that, and it's very interesting, especially for students who are pursuing their thesis, to understand what is the varied kind of things that architects are capable of and they go on to do. So HRIDAY, of course, graduated as an architect, but then he kind of worked on areas of furniture design. I'm sure he will talk more about it. Then he did his master's in industrial design. Then he went into the world of design, and I think that is perhaps what we will come to know. And the world of design, there is it's a whole world out there. It's a whole universe out there. And he has been working on, I don't know the right name, or branding design, or I think he will be the best person to explain what kind of designs he has been working on. Lately, he has definitely not been working on furniture design or product design, but in terms of creating a whole design impression of a particular product. So really happy and really excited to have HRIDAY. We used to call him GAMI actually. Really excited to have GAMI. And what I really don't know is what he's going to show, because he said he will show something new and something different. So I have no clue what he has up his sleeves. And with that, I would like to welcome GAMI on behalf of our university and our school. So GAMI, stage is all yours.
Thank you, Pratyush. I think two things you said, right? Like, one, you don't know what I'm going to present, so that's the dangerous thing to trust me with, going by my history in college. And yeah, I want to thank you and SEDA for having me here and giving me an opportunity to share my work. So it's okay for everyone on this call. It's going to be like a really quick run through of. I'm going to really race through slides. So try and keep up. Okay. Let me just share my screen and let me know if everyone can see it.
Yeah, it's visible.
Yes, we can see it.
All right. So a little bit of introduction to myself before we get into it. I frankly, even I didn't know what I was going to present. So I thought, just call this talk small, medium, large, and just show 3 scales of project that I've been working on I have worked on in the last 5-6 years, maybe. And a little about myself. So I studied architecture, did a bit of furniture, product, interior, industrial design, and I went to do my master's with that intent. But that's when communication design kind of caught my fancy and moved straight into that, into graphic design, into branding, into visual storytelling, actually. And then now it's all coming together, right? So I don't know if you've seen the poster carefully enough or read through it, but it said that, architecture was the best, like studying architecture was the best thing I did, and not practicing even better, because I feel like all this distance from architecture. Now I want to do architecture, but I know that I have like a completely fresh perspective towards it. All right, so getting straight in, two large projects that I'm going to show you are Echo and Godrej Design Lab. Both were done when I was working at Godrej and Boyce in Bombay. Aether Space is a project for Aether Energy that I did in Bangalore. And the three, that's in terms of impact and scale, now it's like a large project. But when I was doing it, I guess I would still call it medium. And then Park That Thought, Sing and Core, and Cyanotypes. These are three projects that are more like hobby projects or side projects, right? And they're small, so that's that. All right, let's get into this. So Echo was basically a brand, a lifestyle brand that we were trying to come up with. And this was when I was working at the Innovation and Design Center at Godrej. And the brand essentially, revolved around these three things. So traditional knowledge, indigenous craft, and industrial processes. Indigenous craft and traditional knowledge is something that we go back. Like this is always fascinated us in terms of as being designers, where we come from, tracing our heritage, looking at things from a fresh perspective, but also from a material perspective. That's why Godrej comes in. So Godrej has like 120 plus year old company, which has been fine tuning and refining and really becoming the expert of manufacturing and industrial materials, steel, platinum, you name it, right? They do a really great job with super precise milling, like lots of super precise processes. So this is where we kind of positioned Echo, and that was the seeds of Echo. And then what it grew into is a brand that focused on functionality, experience, and style, right? And because this is a lifestyle brand, we wanted to base the brand on these three pillars. So the design principles that came out of it was, we make objects that are designed to express, contextual objects that talk about our culture, insightful storytelling. So there is some story behind every project or every object that we made. And we're definitely a brand that's bold, that's out there, that's really expressive, but not loud, right? So I'm going to take you to the first product that kind of stemmed from the story of the lamp, and what is it that you can do with a lamp, and just at the core, having that wicker or having that flame, and then what is it that you can surround it with to give it more meaning. Okay, so this was Tapasa. It was a system of parts, a kit of parts, where you could use the lamp as a kettle warmer, as a aroma diffuser, and just as a source of light. So this was like made out of, if I go back, this made out of materials like brass and borosil, which are super industrial materials, and then ceramics, which has a very like raw touch and feel to it. Also made with like semi industrial, but also falling in the craft realm. And then just some details of how this. I know we can come back to parts of this if you want to go dive deeper, but this is just an overview of what these products were, right? And what this brand actually, like, what was our vision for the brand. So this is, again, as you see, a brand, like a product that's in use of how we imagined it to be. And then just making, like, segueing from kettle to kettle. Chai is like essential to our culture. We see like it's omnipresent, right? And what could we do? And more than chai, it's the conversations around it that happened around it at the tapri, right? So this was a design of a kettle, and then again, not limited to the kettle. So, like, we could have just designed a kettle and stopped there, but it's actually the whole experience of, someone comes home, group of friends come home, you all want chai. How do you serve it? How do you bring it out? How do you start a conversation from there? And then you could like start that conversation from here, but take it to wherever you want, right? That's what happens at a chai kada. So basically, this was again brass and ceramic. It's a tray which can house 6 cups, a couple of snack trays, and a pretty large teapot for like keep that tea party going, right? This was called Tapri, and again, it's a system of or composition of 5 parts. And then yeah, so there was an alternative here as well. So if you were just serving snacks, you could have like fafda, you could have nachos, you could put chips, put dip here, put chutney here, and you're good to go, right? So again, like finding a place in Indian homes, in modern urban Indian homes, that's the context of these products. But building them with like craft as one pillar and industrial process as one pillar. All right, and this is the same product in use. And the third quintessential Indian product was the Silvata, and what we designed for the Silvata looked something like this. It's a product that lies somewhere between, or is an amalgamation of the Silvata and the mortar pestle. So you can ground, you can paste, you can grind, you can do stuff. This is like diverse that way, right? And the stone is Kadapa, comes from worked on in Jaipur. The brass is made at Godrej. So again, that amalgamation of craft and industrial. And yeah, so an interesting story around this product was, in fact, all three, but particularly this one. So we made these products. We personally loved them, and then we wanted to test it out or take this to market in some way. And we put up a small pop-up shop in Kala Ghoda in Bombay, and we spent the day there just setting this up, setting up a table, lots of information about the brand, about the product, and then had these 4-5 products showcased there, right? And we came back the next day morning around 11 or 12. We get a call from the store saying there's this lady who wants to buy this. So we're like, hey, this is not for sale, this is our only prototype. We're not going to sell it. It's not for sale. That wasn't the intent. So just tell her that. Salesman calls back 10 minutes later saying that she's not leaving without taking this home. And we're like, okay. So it cost us about 2,000 to make the prototype. We're looking at each other. We're like, prototypes are always expensive, but still let's try getting maybe 4,000 from this, and again, like the production value of this, like if we put it into production, we wanted to bring the cost down to about 500, 600 bucks. This is 2,000, cost us 2,000 to make. We priced it 4,000. As in, we told the salesman, you know what, you can sell for 4,000. He went and quoted 8,000 to that lady, and 10 minutes later, we're like, yeah, sold it for 8,000, right? So that was a great proof of concept that, hey, there are people who appreciate thoughtful products. There are people who appreciate well-made product, and there's a market out there. Unfortunately, we never ended up taking it like at scale to market. Lots of changes happened at the innovation center, and this project kind of feel like it just phased away, right? But I'm glad I worked on this, because this was in some sense a very comprehensive project that we did, right from the product to the brand to the graphics to the language, and it really laid the foundation for what I was like preparing myself to do for further future projects, right? So again, like as you can see, this is the only prototype. By the time we got down to doing another photo shoot, this was the only prototype we were left with. And now coming to the brand, right? So again, it's this like the word echo comes from echo and echo, which is just echoing what our past is. So that was the meaning and history of the brand, and then just taking you through some visual explorations of what form we could have given it, and what we finally settled on. So these were just some explorations that we went through. Lots of debate, lots of fighting, lots of like put everything out there, go away, and then come back tomorrow. That kind of stuff to help us take somewhat objective decisions, because they're never really objective when you're talking about graphics. And this is what we finally, I wouldn't say settled on. I mean, I really like this. And so I guess what we picked. All right, my second big project at Godrej and Boyce was the Godrej Design Lab. And this was, I would say there are three parts to this project. First, I'm going to go through the brand and what GDL actually is, and then show you two projects, one as post GDL or one on each side of GDL, right? So Godrej Design Lab was basically a platform which encourages advances design excellence and exploration. Like, this was the founding tenets of GDL. And when we talk about brand, I would say we wanted to appear structured, not rigid, fresh, not frivolous, raw, but not coarse, and edgy, but not weird, right? Which means we're always pushing boundaries of where we are, but we're trying to also define that, hey, pull back. That's too far. And because it was, again, bringing in Godrej, bringing in material, never departing from that, and keeping the essence of material and some hapticity to the designs. This was our identity, very heavily textured, relying on texture. So it's not just the logo, it's not just the way you write it, but also what is the final image that you create, and that's the impression that you leave, right? And these are some initial explorations. You'll see, like, we've gone too far and then come back. In some places, we've just gotten bored and doodled. Some of these ideas are actually ideas that you have to put out there so that you're not stuck on them. Just draw it once so that you don't, because in your head, while creating an identity, you get an idea and then you like start building on it and then building on it, and then it becomes so beautiful that it stops you from thinking beyond it, right? So the best thing to do that time is to draw it out, and the moment you draw it, it allows you to forget about it and then move on to the next and the next, right? So these were some explorations for that identity. And then just like, that's one level of design, and then the other is, okay, what's the angle of the shadow, and then is it 5 degrees, 10 degrees, 15 degrees? Like, again, the only way to take a decision is draw it out. And what happens when it's inversed, and does the same angle work? So there's, like, right from ideating, brainstorming about it, to bringing it back and testing it in some sense and refining it. And then one of the core parts of the identity were textures, were materials, and we heavily relied on that. And then we were also at a stage where we didn't have enough content to put out. We could probably test it out we could put out an Instagram story or an Instagram post, but we were so excited that we wanted to see what happens when you take this identity and add matter to it. So these were, again, some graphic explorations of that, like what would a poster look like, what would an Instagram post look like, what would an event poster look like, and then finally this event happened. So Perception Production was this collaboration between the Godrej Design Lab, Godrej Archives, and Artisans. And we were basically showcasing this industrial photographer, brilliant photographs, Mitar Bedi, who photographed Godrej from 1970 to 72. And this was a showcase of his works there. And then, yeah, I guess the photographs were so good that we needed to do very little with the graphics to kind of bring that magic out, right? And then, yeah, so again, going back to textures, and what you see here, the line drawing is actually the next part of the project. So one of the things in GDL was a fellowship, and that was basically a collaboration between GDL and the fellow, right? In an independent designer studio office. And the way this fellowship was envisioned is that we use Godrej's manufacturing capabilities to make designs that may or may not be marketable, but let's push the limits of design, right? And that's the collaboration GDL and Studio Pomegranate. There were, I think, 3 or 4 more later, but I was here for this one. And there's a studio in Ahmedabad called Bacchus. So I was part of these 2 collaborations, right? So I was managing basically everything, running the program from GDL side, which meant sometimes just running around, sometimes coordinating meetings, design, actually like building up 3D models, because Godrej is like everything that happens at Godrej is our responsibility, which means that we uh, we have to give them things that they understand, right? So as part of this, we part of this, the output of this collaboration was a LilyPad. It's a set of 2 tables, which actually are 3 tables, which I realized at the end while doing the photo shoot. But yeah, so LilyPads. The idea was that we, in India, we don't have so much indoor/outdoor furniture. And if I were to like have a coffee table, can I use it in my bedroom or my balcony or my living room or on the terrace? Like, try to bring that versatility. From a material perspective, look at aluminium. It's a high precision material. You can you can laser cut it, you can bend it into like sheets and get really precise bends. And then the advantage is that you end up getting a super light table. So the 2 tables we made, one was 2.7 kg and 2.1 kgs. Like that's almost lighter than I don't think I have any furniture, including my Muda, which is that light. So yeah, these were the 2 coffee tables. For obvious reasons, it was called the LilyPad. This one's the shorter one, but the wider one, and a smaller version of the same principles, I would say, but a taller one, because we could do that with while being within the constraints of material and weight, right? And yeah, that's so again, like, but we still had to go out of Godrej to get this made, because at Godrej we did make the final pieces, but a huge factory that does probably 1,500 chairs a day is not going to stop their production line to make 1 table for you, right? So yeah, we worked with a lot of vendors just outside like the Godrej gate, who put up shop for exactly this reason, to get like 1 parts, 2 parts, 5 parts, prototypes. Like that's their entire business, right? And I'm sure, like, I remember from Ahmedabad, Gota was one area like that. I'm sure Baroda has an area like that. And that's part of the city that's like totally worth exploring. Just spend time there, figure out people who do laser cutting, water jet, sheet bending, lathe work. And like one day when you want to get something made, you know exactly what to do. And then, of course, like, just going back to this, there was like a lot of sway in this table, because imagine like a 9-part table, 9-part top with 3 super slender 2 millimeter aluminium legs. And there was a huge, like, a lot of twist in this table. So then again, get the designers on board, get Henry, get everyone, try to solve that problem in the most like elegant way possible, right? And so this was the result. We doubled the legs, and yeah, it was a beautiful table at the end of it. Black anodized aluminium table. What we didn't realize was that like wood, aluminium has a grain, or not a grain, but you can say a figure. So if there's like an 8x4 sheet, it's got lines from like that. The history of its manufacturing is there on its surface. We just don't see it till it's anodized, because that really amplifies. Like when you see a black aluminum surface, whether it was this way on the sheet or whether it was perpendicular, right? So I don't know if you can zoom in on this one, but you can actually, yeah, on this picture is much clearer, right? So see how the light's reflecting out here versus on these parts. So of course, like, the idea would be to take this to the next level, where we're using this as part of the design and we're aware of this, so that I either just say, yeah, this is nice, enjoy it the way, like the randomness, or you can actually like go into it and say, no, on every petal I want it like this, right? But it was fun developing these. So this is a child table. this is a residue table. Somebody was trying to put these tables together. They took the legs from the tall one. They took the legs from the short one. They took the top from the tall one, and they put this table together by mistake. It was never intended to be an ecosystem of 3 tables, but because we've been working with similar numbers and like just refining this design, it ended up happening. So yeah, this happened like just before the photo shoot. Okay, to give you some sense of colors, yeah, this is what it looks like. And here you can see much clearly what I'm talking about in the aluminum, right? Over here, over here, over here. So yeah, I feel like it's a great product. It if once taken apart, it would probably fit in like a tennis racket size bag. So that was like a feeling of accomplishment for this project. All right, how did I get to Godrej Design Lab in the first place, or in fact Godrej? And this is going back to 2012, where this project started. 2016 is where in my head it kind of culminated, right? So here we go. Kinderwagon. It's called Kinderwagon. It was like classroom furniture conceptualized for schools, especially international board schools, which have a more like not as rigid a curriculum. And I know like none of this would make sense till I showed you this, right? So this is how it was intended to use for kids between 5 to maybe 8, 9 would be pushing it, but small 9-year-olds would still find this fun. The idea stemmed from the fact that the curriculum requires so many different kinds of activities. They're drawing, they're just resting, they're sharing things in the class. All of that is happening, right? But our traditional desks, like desk chair setup, just doesn't allow for that. And why shouldn't furniture be fun? Because at that age, you're not really worried so much about distraction. They're going to be distracted anyway, right? So this is the other part of the product. So you can actually like take this, sit with your friend, draw with them, come back, get together in a group, and then share crayons and paint and craft material, and then go back after lunch and take it to wherever you want. Right. So that was the story behind this product. I was working at Antwerp's Furniture in Ahmedabad when I developed this, and for a school, JG International School, and then for like I spent 2.5 years trying to register this design, and my learning from that was in India it's pretty much useless. It was going to cost me 25,000 rupees to register the design, about 10,000 more to give to the lawyer, and at the end of the day I don't get any protection from like someone just copying this and manufacturing it. So I actually submitted in 2015 this to Godrej Design Lab Fellowship. So this is me on the other side as an outsider for Godrej Design Lab. So I submitted this design to them, kind of got shortlisted. I got the fellowship, and then we redid the full pieces, rethought the design a little bit, materials, etc. Made it a little more premium as would fit with the Godrej brand. And yeah, that was it. But the side effects of actually like winning a competition, or actually just being associated with such a big entity is this, right? Like they make it appear that designs this glamorous job with the people with studios and a lot of glamour, and this is definitely not what process looks like, right? This is misrepresentation of design. But then again, there's there's an audience for this. This is the reality. This is 99.99% of what happens when you're designing this. You're working with so many different people who are super skilled at what they do, and you learn so much on the go, right? Like I had never thought. So the first time I gave this guy drawings, he took it 3 days back. 3 days later, he was back with this prototype, and I was like, "How did you make it? I want to see." And he had actually I printed the drawing 1:1. And he just stuck it on a sheet of metal, and then just made it to drawing, no dimension, nothing. This is what it is, and this is what I need to do, right? Um, and well, these are the perks. You get a nice photo shoot out of winning a competition. So that was like connecting back to, this is how my Godrej story started, with this furniture piece. Started working for Godrej, Echo happened, and then Godrej Design Lab happened. So that kind of closes the loop there. Okay, quick shift to Aether Space. So from Bombay, I moved to Bangalore to work for this company called Aether Energy. Now I'm sure like at least 80%, 50% of you would know Aether Energy. But back then, in 2019, they were very like Bangalore, Chennai, very localized electric vehicle startup, right? And at that time, I joined Aether to design their experience centers. They were mostly selling, so 90% of their sales were online, but then there were still these people, we're not used to buying scooters online, right? And then with electric vehicles comes this whole um, um, another aspect of, you don't have to just sell a scooter, because it's not like selling an Activa, selling a Jupiter, because put petrol in Activa and ride. Petrol khatam ho jata hai, put more, ride, right? But with an electric vehicle, you are actually, it's a lifestyle change, because now you're using your scooter like your phone. Okay, you can't carry around a power bank for a scooter, which means you got to charge. You got to remember to charge. Imagine you're living on the 11th floor. You need to you need to install a charger on in your parking. There's going to be people in your society, they're not going to be happy with that. So basically, owning an EV comes with a lot of lifestyle changes, I would say, and just general perception changes. Lots of, it's a much more delicate machine. It doesn't have has almost no oil in it, which means much cleaner. So it's elevated scooters from being scooters to now being gadgets. And this is like, because there's like no mess with the scooter, the whole brand was built on this whole idea of clean and straightforward, and a little bit of humor, but also sarcasm, kind of like slightly unapproachable in some sense, which makes it more desirable. Okay, so that's where the brand was positioned. This is their website, and the exercise was, how do we then complete this story that they're telling on the website, and then take it to an experience center, build it into the space as one experience, as one storytelling experience, something that gets them, educates them, but also makes the scooter aspiration. Okay, so before like getting into any of this, what happens is there's a lot of thinking through and a lot of questions. So I probably spent 2 weeks just showing one version of the information architecture to the team, getting thrashed, coming back, reworking it, and that cycle just repeating for a couple of weeks till we reached a place where we were happy. So what happens, a person comes in, they've seen the brand, they come in, they kind of, there's a pause, there's an orientation zone, they can explore the scooter by themselves. And then what are the specific parts of the storytelling ecosystem? So one is definitely telling them about the specifications, about the features. To a huge chunk of it revolves around charging, and then charging of two types: charging at home, charging at the Ether grid, which is public charging, and then intelligent and connected. So because it's now into a gadget realm, the school, you need to explain what a, or you need to break it down for a regular person to see the benefits of an intelligent and connected scooter. And while all of this is happening at the bottom, there is design and performance, which is really the differentiator for Aether. When it was launched, was it was the fastest accelerating scooter out there, like beating all petrol as well. So that, and then you take them through this entire story, and then they still don't believe you, right? Because hey, you've told a lot of brands tell you a lot of things. So that's when you give them a test ride. And when the test ride happens, this is proof of concept that, whoa, whatever I've been told just suddenly makes sense now. But it doesn't stop there because, yeah, it's a great scooter. But what really blows it out of the park is the data visualization. So what happens is when you go through this journey, you take a test ride, you come back, and there's a whole data visualization ready for to visualize how your test ride went, where you accelerated, where you brake, what's the route you took, all of that. So that kind of just blows you away. And then once you're sold on the scooter is when we can get into the ownership conversation. So how do you own it? Can you just own it like upfront, pay cash? Is there like a subscription plan? Is there, can you buy the battery separately, and can you buy the scooter separately? All of those business things coming in, while on the side, on the peripheries, is this whole merchandise and brand level communication that kind of puts you in that zone of Aether, makes you buy into the brand rather than just the product. Kind of convoluted. But and then you, whether you make up your mind or not, you've got a great experience at the Aether space, and then you exit and extend. So that's again that journey going into the digital realm, where we're bombarded with ads and posts on Instagram to make you keep thinking about Aether. Yeah, so that's how that was the basic, like the skeleton of design. And then that then coming on to the visuals, right? So the idea was here to do like clear sections for each of these. So if I was just to, okay, I can't go back, I don't know why. Let me try. Okay, yeah. So each of these chunks, right? Like we decided to make each of these a modular section because purely because the number of stores that the business planned to open, and so the idea was that, hey, we can fit in, give us 600 or 800 square feet of area, and we should be able to fit in the entire storytelling ecosystem, not compromising on the experience there. So stores range from 800 square feet to 2,400 square feet, depending on cities, depending on, like in Bombay, can't afford more than 600 square feet store, to in Hubli, where we have like maybe a 2,500 square feet store. So these were just explorations. So this is the performance wall and the feature wall. There's how we're going to explain the build of the product, all of that. These were just visual explorations of that, of what is it. And while doing this, the important thing was to explore the boundaries of brand. Like what is our audience ready for, and then two, what is the boundary of the brand. So what will we do and what will we not do, right? At the end of it, to keep that experience, like if you now remember, go back to the website, just to keep that experience in tune with what you experience in the store. We developed a super clean language for the graphics and these modular walls. And now actually it's, so this is what the store looks like. You walk in, there's space to experience the scooter, just explore it, and then you move into this whole storytelling sequence of design for the city, charging, no charging hassles, intelligent and connected, and then own it the way you like it. So this is how the story more or less flows in each of the stores. While this central pedestal, we're talking about the build quality, we're talking about performance. This is a scooter not built in steel, it's built in aluminum. There's always a question about, hey, what happens to the battery in water, so, or in monsoon, or in the rain. So we actually plunked the battery in an aquarium to just make, like, things we were scared of, just don't take a front foot approach to it rather than a back foot approach to it. So this was Hyderabad, same store, or similar experience in Ranji and in Mumbai. So that was that was Aether Space. And over to I think just going to take 2-3 more minutes. Park That Thought, Sing in Core, and Cyanotypes. So these were 3 projects, more like projects that keep me going, keep me creative, things that allow you to do things that you don't get to do in more serious business oriented projects. So part that thought was, I was working at Ather, and then lockdown happened, and we were like, hey, what is it that we can do as a brand that keeps, what is it that we can keep doing as a brand sitting in our home? So we decided that, hey, let's do a lockdown comic series for Ather Energy, and the context would obviously be electric vehicles and the lockdown and what people are doing in the lockdown, but also to keep the general tone like optimistic and humorous, sarcastic sometimes. So I'll just take you through 2 or 3 ones that I liked. So here, this is like a wordplay on electric. And the idea was to keep the setting the same, because that's kind of driving home. It's like a meta idea, but that's driving home the project, the concept that like everyone's staying at home, right? Remember the first 2 months of lockdown, 2 or 3 months, depending on where you were, everyone was just home. So we decided not to change the visuals at all, or like not to change the setting. The visuals kind of tweaked in different comics, but it was really like I'd never done a project where something was due the next day, right? Every day for a month. So imagine you're coming up with concepts every day for the next day. You got to draw it out. You got to, that pressure's on it. And that kind of gives you a glimpse of what it would be like to be working for a newspaper, for a news channel, or, things that just go out every day. That's a different level of pressure. And all we had to do was just 2 people making one drawing and trying to come up with one statement, right? So, and trying to keep it funny. So this was, and then there were days where we couldn't come up with copy, but we had a concept, right? So I don't know how many of you get this, but yeah, like this is writer's block, this is creative block. Cool. Okay, this project, before I introduce this project, it's not a project actually, but this, no offense to anybody or any community, disclaimer here, right? But this was like super random idea that we, like one party, we was all drinking, and what if we do this, and then next day, like, if you take the leap on that idea and you actually just go make it for the heck of it, I spent 4 hours or 5 hours doing this, but it was fun. Okay. And it's something we had a good laugh about. So we always wondered where, like, how easy it is to find a name, for our Sardar friends. Just take one from the black box, could take Jug, and then find one on the gray box or white box, and you're like, yeah, Preet, Jug Preet, that's a good name, right? So but then how do you take it to the next level? How do you mix it up? So you make a dice out of it, right? And it's basic. And then I ended up gifting this to a friend of mine who's also Sardar, but and he found it really funny. But yeah, like the difference between, hey, this is a really cool idea, and then forgetting about it, versus just saying, hey, maybe it's worth making it. What the heck? And then you make it, and then that just like propels you. And I was laughing while I was making this with nobody in the room, right? And then the last project that I want to share are Cyanotypes. These are something I'm doing on the side as a hobby, but this is a really old, like 19th century photo printing technique, that this predates silver printing. So this is in some sense one of the first photo printing techniques out there, and it's like a contact print, so your negative is the same size as the paper, and it's called cyanotype printing. And I found it as a good way of storytelling, of just capturing my experiences somewhere, being to say travels or someone's wedding, and then putting that into a story, into a paper format. And I really love the blues that you get from this. So that's something that I'm always trying to fine tune here. But these are some staples from Ahmedabad, and Yep, that's that. I need a sip of water now.
Thank you. Thanks, sir. Thanks, Hriday. Can you just stop
Thank you.
sharing the screen?
Sure.
No, this is terrific actually, and well, I'm actually amazed by the range of work that you have shown in such a short time. And
I told you I'm going to run through it.
yeah. No, it's wonderful because there is. I think you have touched upon so many different things. I'm also just processing because right from this whole, the first part about the question of tradition and how, end of the day, we're so modern, we're so different from that time when Silvata, we were discussing that Silvata
Yeah, correct.
was used to make chutney. But then how do you kind of make it relevant today? Or the idea of the tapri, where you look at this whole idea of the tea as a social process, rather than just a vessel to keep tea. So I think it's a yeah, have your water first. It's it's a huge range, and I think a very important lesson, for students especially, as to how an idea is kind of taken forward, because I think what you've shown applies for most all of the design process, be it architecture, interior, etc. Attention to details and developing a narrative. Your suggestion on just making it once and putting it in front and then going away. I think those are all very valid, practical, and very important suggestion. I just had one. It's more of a specific question that I have, and since maybe I myself am not so much familiar with this whole business of communication design, and I had a very specific question. So when you are kind of making that whole experience centers, as you call them, and I think I really liked your idea that how owning these e-scooters is almost an experience of owning a gadget. It is like owning an iPad or a Mac. That's so your relationship with a machine, with a two-wheeler, actually changes. And and it was fascinating how when they come back from the test ride, you actually show them those graphs. Because that's very fascinating to see. Oh, I went like this, I braked then, and I accelerated, and that's the experience, right? So I think it's crazy. It's totally insane because we don't think like this. I mean, we are not trained to think like this. But I'm just wondering. I mean, this is more. Maybe it will help also the students. When, as a communication designer, how do you work when you come up with such things? You'll have to talk to you'll have to talk to the business leaders, you'll have to talk to perhaps the engine designer, you'll have to talk to the guy who worked on the automobile design, the technology, so it seems to be many things that one needs to. How do you arrive at, because the messaging was very clear. And is that like one master kind of old master architect taking all the call? How does that happen? It will be very enlightening for us to know.
It's not very different from architecture. Like, you are the person who is building this, right? And you have to talk to, in this context, consultants within the business. And this is, again, so my role here in this was a huge learning, because being a creative within a company that's not got creative objectives, or the goal of any company or business is to get the money, right? So which means you are always trying to solve the creative problem, and a lot of the time there's no direct, I can't prove to you that if you do this I will get you more business. That's one underlying problem. But apart from that, we are always like, yes, working with business people, spending time at the shop, seeing what people are doing, seeing what are the kind of questions they're asking on online forums, what are existing customers' biggest anxieties. Like, so there are two major anxieties about owning electric vehicles. One is range, ये कहीं पे भी बंद हो सकता है, okay, and the other one is charging. Like, I live in a bungalow, I live in a tenement, I live in a housing colony, that I live in Bombay, I don't have parking, right? So there are so many, so charging and range anxiety are one of the biggest problem that we identified. That, and because the business model was so complex, there were subscription plans, and the scooters connected, which means every day there is like every month there's a charging bill, there's like a SIM card bill, you're using data. So like things like this, these are, you have to reach out to different people within the business to help you solve this, help you understand this better, and then they'll tell you some technical stuff, okay, lots of jargon, and then you have to process it and then break it down for the person who's buying it.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. It's very complex, very fascinating. But also, I think it comes up together in a very, very nice fashion. So the dice, what was the size of the dice?
Oh,
Like
it's
this
okay,
size. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I can see it. Yeah, very nice. So you have them right at your table.
yeah, this like it's a tabletop accessory for me now. Oh god, the blur is
Yeah, I can
not
see it.
helping,
And
but
it's like a folded um,
yeah, it's just paper.
Yeah. Awesome. This was like crazy. It'll be fascinating to see how many dices you need for, let's say, in Gujarat, because there are also patterns there.
Yeah, there are.
It will be
There's
crazy.
definitely going to be an ish. There's going to be an ish.
Yeah, lesh.
And then you could add jig, you could add pink, you could add.
Yeah, that's insane. Very fascinating. Actually, it's a fun thing. It's fun weekend thing. But I'm sure my colleagues here, and Shalini is also here. She's looking after the design program. I'm sure they have something to say or comment and ask questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Yes.
Hello, Dr. Sandeep. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I was just quietly listening
You were
the
there. I didn't
presentation.
notice.
Yeah. So, yeah, if
Dr.
Shalini
Sandeep
does
is
not
our
have a question, I'd
registrar,
like to
GAMI.
ask.
Okay.
He's our registrar and he comes from computer science, but he's an academic. He has a PhD in computer science. And the other thing is he was also looking after Anant, which is a design university. He was the registrar there. So he's very much interested in the field of design or design and academics and stuff like that.
That's nice.
Yeah. So, HRIDAY, it was a nice presentation I was going through, and as rightly Pratyush said, that the variety of work or the range of work that you have worked with.
You are on mute. आप mute पे चले गए, Sandeep.
Sorry. I am very sorry for that.
Range of work, right?
Yeah, so range of work I was talking about. So, if students are listening, and right now we are also writing a lot of documents where we are discussing about multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, so the work, when you are doing it, if students are listening and they need to understand that, how interdisciplinary one should be while doing his or her work in their domain. So, especially you are from the design field, now you are taking all the project from the different field. So what are the challenges comes when you take the project, and how do you resolve the domain expertise which you may not have? So what kind of challenges you get at that time, and how one should overcome those things?
Okay.
So I was wondering.
So two parts to the question, right? One, let me get you again. So one is, how do I challenge the domain expertise that I don't have? Like how do I make up for that? And what was the other one?
Sorry.
What was the other question?
I think that's the main. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So depends, but YouTube, friends, people who are already doing this, vlogs, like I learned swimming from YouTube. So if I can do that, then you can pretty much get what you want from the internet. Yeah, that's a huge place of knowledge if you use it right. But definitely having your network, asking people, hey, I need some help with animation. How do I do this? What is this called? How do I even search for this? I remember you showed me something. Can you send it again? Things, just reaching out to your network really helps, and then keeping that network alive. So till date, I call my carpenter who I worked with in 2012 once in a while. So you have to keep that network alive. Sometimes just keep like be humble about it that you don't know, so we'll figure it out. But also, like, I've taken on projects where I've not known, like a lot of projects where you don't know what you're getting into, but you take the leap.
Yeah, correct. So right now, what we are asking our student is to, look at the curriculum from the outside point of view. It means you are in architecture and design, but you should also take certain electives from, different fields like engineering or management, so that it will actually broaden your horizon, to think differently and, get adjusted to the different fields also, that how the other people in the different fields works. And ultimately, when you go into industry, you are not alone who is going to work with only peers with the same discipline. So that's very important, that you develop in a what you can
So
say.
I guess, like, I guess it's important, but I feel architecture and design are already great courses that offer so much diversity anyway. So one thing I'm glad about is that I studied architecture because it showed me so much already, right? And it gave and laid a really strong foundation, both in terms of thought process and in terms of aesthetic. And what I had to work on a little bit was to get rid of the baggage, because all this also comes with a little bit of baggage, right? So be conscious about it, become aware of, why are you thinking this way? And then if you're able to do that, I feel like there's like, okay, so a classmate of mine enlightened me with this statement in third year or fourth year of architecture. Vishnu, he said, man, there's only one way to do architecture. And I was like, what, man? And I was expecting something very fascist uh, to come out of, like, he has very strong views about how you should do architecture. And I was like, what? And he's like, like the way you decide. It's so, and that was like completely opposite. I was anarchist, right? So he said, there's only one way. Like the way you do it, that's the only way to study architecture, and then go on and do whatever you want to do after that.
Yeah, but also I guess what I think, if I were to just put, now we are talking more as academics, and because we're also concerned, I think also SEPT where you studied was
Yeah.
in any case in its curriculum and also in its practice very broad based. So
Correct.
which might not be true for many architecture
agree.
colleges, right?
And now,
And
like,
so,
with the whole context has changed so much. So I
correct.
agree with you. Yeah.
So it was like you were doing those classical music nights. Guys are making pizza at that pizzeria that you guys had made, or the clay club that's happening, or in the seminar you're doing that Japanese nisho nosho burning of that. Yeah. So I think that's very interesting. The point that it brings out about the role of institute in shaping people.
That's true.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, like from coursework, I would say I took 10% of what I learned.
I think that's what we wanted to hear. Yeah. Good. I did not waste time teaching you too many courses, and I was traveling more with you.
Yeah, that was a huge learn.
Yeah, great. And I think it's also good because then you went to IIT, so which is also another world.
Yeah, that's a completely different world. I was not ready for it.
Yeah. Shalini or Priyanka is here, Pragya is here. I'm sure they might have something to say. Pragya, you want to ask? In the meanwhile, Shalini is trying to unmute herself, like always.
Okay, hi Abed. I've seen you after
Hi.
a long time.
Yes.
Yeah, so really nice to see, and really enjoyed the presentation that you made. So I have another question because Pratish talked about collaboration. We are discussing so much about collaboration, which is interdisciplinary. But I found very exciting that I mean, when you were talking about this comic series, right?
Yeah.
And you were creatively collaborating with someone.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. No, and that is very different. I do believe that when you're collaborating with people from different disciplines, then it's very clear what is the collaboration leading to. So how do you find this? How does that work in the field? I think it will be really great for students also to know. How do you?
Okay, so I don't know why this thought popped up in my mind, but I would say like when you're collaborating with another creative, it's very important to get rid of your ego, right? Because then you can jam very freely, very openly, not shoot down ideas, and like really evaluate each idea. Be very open. Versus a lot of times it happens that when you're collaborating with someone who's outside of design, then you want to keep that, you want to hold that stature, not for any other reason, but to show that we bring value, what we do is valuable. um, uh, don't take us for granted just because we're not talking business. Just from that perspective, but also while taking feedback, I feel like you should keep the ego aside. Your work does not define you. Like that's what I believe, that your work doesn't define you. Okay, you did something, you put it out there, take all the critique you want, like you get on that, and that's fine. But don't take it as a critique on yourself or who you are. From whoever it comes, right? It could be a creative, it could be a non-creative, it could be a business person, salesperson, customer, whoever it is. So, but I feel when you're putting your work out there, that matters. Like when you're pitching it to a creative, expect that it's going to be bombarded. And when you're pitching it to, a business person, go with the you see the value in your work and make sure you put that across.
Thanks. I can sense the kind of experience that you have had. And I think it will be, your feedback is great value to the students also, especially those, in the initial years who get disheartened in the reviews. And we keep telling them that this is a creative, feedback that we are trying to give. To see from the perspective of a professional that the attitude that you develop is something which will go on in your life.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very interesting to know that. Thanks.
HRIDAY, I know it was a wonderful presentation and I have many, many things to ask you, but I'm going to leave it up to the students, design students especially, to, ask you this. But one thing that very, very prominently came about in your presentation was the kind of specificity you had towards material. When you did whatever, we take an example of the kitli at the chai ki tapri. Traditionally, it is made out of aluminum. And then the kind of innovation that you came up with. So how specific, or was it material that came as a thought process in the beginning, or was it the design and then the material followed? Which took precedence?
Okay, so I'll be. This was definitely not the first ceramic kettle of the world, right? So the material was kind of, we knew what our range was. We had ceramic, we had porcelain, we had glass to some extent on our mind. So we started with this palette that it was definitely not aluminium or brass, because we don't want, that's a kettle that's always on fire, like on the fire, versus something that we want to retain the heat in. So this was our material palette to begin with, and then the form started emerging. So it was always an oscillation between form and material for that particular kettle. And then again, we also thought about making the tray in ceramic. That was like 1.5 kilos, right? So that was not a good idea. So again, choosing brass over there, and then working with that combination, really, like I thought it looked pretty good. And then we had Malik, who was earlier here on like in one of the other previous lectures. So we worked with him to develop the ceramic components. So I feel, but it's also not that straightforward. Like because we knew Clay Club, we knew Maulik, uh, we also were inclined that, hey, there's someone who can do a prototype, there's someone who can do a manufacturing. Let's stick with what we have. So that part we're not running around. Like you have to choose which battles you want to fight, right? Do you want to spend 2 months looking for the perfect partner, or do you know that, hey, we have a great partner, we want to spend those 2 months working on the form and design.
Correct. So material does play an important role, right? I mean,
Huge.
So it kind of keep oscillating between the design and the material that you finally choose. Because that has always been the dilemma for a lot of our students when they actually, get to doing prototyping. So there is a lot of experimentation, there is a lot of exploration, there is a lot of inhibitions to experimenting on a material which they have never tried before. So, yes.
Yeah, I would say the only way to know material is like break it, mold it, drill it, do whatever you can with it, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Are there any more questions? Maybe, I don't know, there's some message on the chat box. Chat. Okay, this Dhwani Makwana asking you, Gami, there's a student asking you, were you ever demotivated anytime during this journey? If yes, how did you cope up? I think she wants to know about your drinking habits. And and the dice was very funny. Emoji smiling. Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. Yeah, of course I was demotivated. At many points. Like it's not I mean, it's not all roses here or anywhere actually. So it's only natural that some days are really bad. Some projects are like particularly Aetherspace. That was a project like I faced so much shooting down from the business, from the marketing team, saying this is not going to work. This is like, break it down. This is too complex. And I like worse things from the creative head. I would take some design like they boring it, and and that like that was the biggest you can say hit, right, to a person who thinks of themselves as creative, as a designer. You take this to someone and they're like, you're boring it. Okay. So lots of hits to the ego, lots of bad days while doing all of these projects. Vendors not picking up their phone and people saying, "Ha, main kar dunga," and then not turning up for a week. So all of this is part of the part of life only, like, and comes with every project. Which is why the hobby project, right? Because there you are you are the only contributor in some sense, and you create this for yourself and laugh at it.
Hi Pratyush, Nihar here. Good evening.
Hi Nihar. So Nihar is also a faculty member teaching here. He's a practicing interior designer.
Nice. Hey Nihar.
Hi Hriday, congratulations. A really nice presentation. Just one hunch, you're standing and delivering your presentation?
Yes.
Oh wow, that's great. Yeah. I love the different angle this time on Zoom.
All right.
Feel that you are in your face.
It's more a result of the numerous meetings we do through the day.
That's excellent. That's excellent. I just have one word to all these students who are there on the program right now. This is your future. This is what you need to be 10 years hence outside the faculty. I think Shalini should approve of that. And secondly, that design now per se, yes, is a thing which will have collaborations. You cannot do without it. We have been doing a lot where we have got artisans and craftsmen and stuff like that. Any word for students that you would like to give on what they should do to come to the pedestal that you are on right now?
Frankly, I was never a student who, like the kind of student I was, I don't feel right giving any piece of advice to anybody. But I would say, like, have fun in what you're doing, even if it's even if it's the smallest of projects in the whole semester, and you had fun doing that project, you'll see the difference.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, this is the most unlikely question anyone would ask Gami. knowing what all he was up to when he was a student. I couldn't have believed कि Gami को कल को ये सवाल पूछेगा आप student को क्या बोलना चाहते. But yeah, I mean, I think he also has this, this also related with the last question, how do you survive failures? And I think the humor that he brings in in everything that he does is perhaps one of the biggest thing that one can pick from him in terms of have fun. And he would always, when you need that, right? And I'm always somehow reminded of Gurjeet when I look at Gami, because I think they all come from that belief system that at a daily basis, if you're not having fun, then बाकी तो सब हो जाता है, it takes care of itself. So yeah. Priyanka?
Hi Pratyush. Yeah. Hi Gami. Good to see you after a very long time. Yeah. So my memory with Gami had been like he would haunt us because I was in my first year and he was in third year, and
oh God.
First years are like the most victimized. Nothing to say much, but yeah, there had been horror memories of him. But then later we realized he was very good. So good to see you today. So yeah, I mean, great. It was very nice to see your work, because what we used to see in the university was a very different kind of work and work environment, and then what we see now, and the whole passion with which you were explaining every little thing, and that your involvement in that process of starting from a diagram or maybe that little doodle for a logo to actually getting it all executed, like your entire involvement was seen even when you were delivering. I have one question which is slightly off track and not a part of everything that you showed. So I have
There's
recently...
nothing about my past, okay?
No, not about your past, actually about your present, because Instagram has kind of informed me about it. So you have been extensively traveling now. So how has that become an important part? I mean, was it just a hobby that you picked up, or has it really helped you in some way? Or your eyes are always out there searching for a lot of things or observing? Because, and I'm relating this to that first... the making of those products that you started with the Kitli on the Tapri and the Silvata too. So I'm just trying to relate it across, if there's any connection or anything about travel that you would want to say.
Okay. So I've been traveling like college, 6 years. I was there like doing architecture for 8 years. But 6 years out of that, I traveled 100 days a year. Right. I made sure that we traveled 100 days a year on shoestring budget, living in temples, spending night at bus stands, whatever we could, but 100 days a year, right? And that was when like travel started, and I realized what I was doing was basically building a library of a spatial library of spaces, building a library of materials, building a library of references in my head. Okay. And definitely like traveled 2 or 3 years was like zero travel, and I realized how miserable I was because of that. I don't know if it's like ever directly affected or how I brought it in directly into work. This last travel was just for the heck of it. Like 2 friends I wanted to sell my bike. He wanted to take his bike home, so we rode from Bangalore to Delhi across. Like we took the scenic route instead of the shortest route.
Okay, thanks.
He had visited my studio. I think they both on their en route.
Oh yeah.
It was, and we were so jealous to see these 2 young people. I mean, this is something that we keep planning, but we never get to do it. But they actually did it. So वो अच्छा था कि बाइक नहीं बिक रही थी, तो then he thought he will make a show out of it. But he sold his bike, you know that.
I sold my bike on the way. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it was for me it was a nostalgic trip, because I was meeting all these people who were at some point in the same place in Sept, and then now they were spread across this route. So like meeting people, friends in Goa, in Alibag, and in Baroda, which is one reason I didn't go to Ahmedabad, because like there were just too many people to meet over there. But that was a very nice part of this route, just rekindling these connections now, and also like this
But I think
your studio
your
is like one
food
of the high
blog,
points.
your photographs of the restaurants you were visiting were far more exciting than your road photographs, because these guys were hogging like anything.
Yes,
They were going to the
yeah,
best places.
yes. So the
So
food
mujhe lag
photographs
raha
is
tha,
what
वजन
was
बढ़
like,
जाएगा.
and in the middle of all this lockdown and all the pandemic where we feel so scared to even go to the tapri to have chai, and these two are loitering around, and at least हम देख के तो मजे ले, ऐसा हो गया था.
Yeah. Great. So Pavni, if there are no more questions, you're on mute.
There are no more questions on Zoom. Right?
Maybe you want to say the last word and
Yeah.
also thank him. Maybe give your comment on what you felt. So Pavni is our youngest member of the faculty.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So thank you for joining us, and it was really interesting to see the way you have, teach and work in different scales, from product to, I guess, communication, branding, design, and stuff. So, multidisciplinary always intrigued me because I also do a lot of things. So it was really nice to see how, in practice one can, explore. And I really love
Thank
your cyanotypes. It also has the blue of our studio, sir. Yeah,
Okay.
So, apart from that, thank you. And I guess
Nice, thank you.
many of students also saw the explorations of one can have, with diversity of interest and how one can practice. So it was really interesting and intriguing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Yeah, thank you, Gami. Wonderful. All the very best, and we'll figure out ways. I mean, this online is a bit irritating, but we'll figure out like physical ways next time around to have you for a few days.
For
That'll
sure.
be much more enriching for all of us.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, and thanks everyone
Thank
for
you.
joining.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.